Texas, with a population of more than 30 million people and the second most powerful economy in the United States, is falling into a serious homeless crisis. And Dallas was the most serious epicenter. In just a few months, thousands of families have lost their homes, caught up in this silent but devastating wave of homelessness. Dream Texas, where once promised that anyone could buy a house, live freely, raise children, is now buried under every landfill, every old gas station, where people sleep in cars and eat leftovers as a way to survive. In this video, we'll walk into the darkest corners of America's second largest state, together to look directly at the truth that's being hidden behind the urban lights and the flow of oil money. Stay tuned to the end, as Dallas is just the first chapter of a larger-than story about Texas and a fragmented America right before our eyes. Dallas, a city often hailed as the shining gem of the American South. This is the commercial, financial, sports and cultural hub, where the American dream seems to be touched every day. Skyscrapers sparkling in the Texas sun, busy neighborhoods, stadiums packed with fans, all together portray the picture of prosperity that anyone can admire. During the day, Dallas glows in prosperity. At night, the city lights shine brightly, like an artificial galaxy that never goes out. But hidden behind all that glamour is another Dallas. A dark, harsh Dallas, where thousands of people are living in conditions that few want to admit. As of early 2025, over 3,700 homeless people have been recorded in Dallas counties alone. This number is not just dry data, but the fate of thousands of concrete lives that are swaying in the midst of the harshness of the city. Just turn a street corner, step over a bridge, or dive into deserted alleys. One sees a completely opposite reality. Tents patchworked from plastic tarpaulins and cartons, emaciated faces hidden in the shadows, marginalized lives. This is Dallas of uncertainty, of oblivion, a hell right in the middle of a prosperous city. For many, Dallas is a symbol of progress. But for thousands of homeless people, this place is a daily battleground for survival. When the economy is still bustling, they are left behind, deprived of their most basic right, a home to return to. Those faces do not appear in travel brochures, nor is there a place in the success stories that the city is often proud of. They exist quietly, obscured by the sparkling light of high-rise buildings. Dallas has a bitter paradox. The richer, the flashier, the deeper the gap between prosperity and despair. This city may boast about its growth, about its career opportunities, about the real estate boom, but at the same time is witnessing a prolonged social crisis. On the same street, just a few meters apart, on one side are luxury restaurants, glossy cars. On the other side are ramshackle tents, where people have to wrap themselves in torn blankets to fight the cold at night. The Dallas homeless crisis is not a natural phenomenon. It is the result of many mounting problems: skyrocketing house prices, inadequate living wages, limited healthcare systems, and social stigma. It all forms a difficult spiral to escape, pushing people out of safe houses to wander the streets. Dallas, therefore, is not only a city of lights, but also a city of darkness. It is both a testament to prosperity and a proof of the failure to protect the weakest citizen. And when one looks deeply into that paradox, one sees clearly. Dallas is not only facing a local problem, but also reflects the contradictory face of modern America. If a city once hailed as a symbol of prosperity for the American South can also be in crisis like this, what awaits other places? This is just the beginning of the bigger picture. To understand better, we need to look at the cold numbers. The statistical data is not just data, but thousands of lives that are being forgotten amid the glory of this city. Imagine a morning in Dallas. You open the door and walk out and realize that right behind the familiar office, neighborhood or park has grown an additional row of temporary tents. The red-green canvas roofs were crisscrossed, the piles of trash had not yet been cleared, and the smell of smoke from a small fire that had just broken out at night. It is no longer a strange thing, but has become a familiar image of this city. According to official figures, complaints related to homeless camps in Dallas have increased by 45% compared to before the pandemic, from about 8,000 cases to more than 11,000 cases. But for local residents and businesses, that dry number is just the surface. A lawn service business owner in northwest Dallas said that after a fire broke out right next to the company, they feared both for safety and were frustrated that the administration was only dealing with the consequences of the problem, not the roots. The problem is, Dallas has too many overlapping regulatory agencies, from the Office of Homeless Solutions to the Department of Water, then other departments. All have responsibilities, but no one is responsible to the end. As a result, the measures are temporary. Cleaning up during the day, tents grow again at night. That cycle happened endlessly, like a wound that had never healed. What angers many people the most is the gap between words and reality. While the city government repeatedly claims the situation has improved, people living right in Dallas find it getting worse every day. City councillors also began publicly doubting the figures in the report, saying they were just beautiful numbers to include in presentations. While the conferences still took place in luxurious air-conditioned meeting rooms, Dallas was stuck in a paradox. On paper, things look like they're making progress. But on the streets, businesses, residents, and even some officials witness the exact opposite picture. The fragmented, uncoordinated management system has turned all efforts into half-hearted solutions, causing confidence in the authorities' capacity and transparency to waver. When a wealthy city like Dallas can't even find a definitive solution, can we believe that other places in America will do better? And more importantly, what will people's trust be when the beautiful numbers on the report no longer match the reality they see every day? In many American cities, instead of being seen as a social problem to be solved, homelessness is increasingly embedded in the image of crime. Many local governments have issued decrees banning sleeping outdoors, banning setting up tents, and even banning sitting or lying on sidewalks in the central area. These regulations are promoted as public safety solutions, but in reality, they accidentally or intentionally turn poverty into illegal behavior. As a result, thousands of people who have lost their homes now face the risk of being arrested, fined, or have criminal records simply because no shelter. Some human rights organizations have pointed out that instead of tackling the roots, these policies only make the spiral of poverty tighter. A person who has been detained for sleeping in a park will find it difficult to find a stable job, and as such, the chances of escaping the streets are almost zero. The authorities often give a familiar reason. We need to maintain order and safety for the community. It is undeniable that in some areas, homeless camps come with sanitation, fires, or security. But what angers many is the lack of balance in approach. While authorities spend millions to maintain police patrols, the budget for affordable housing or mental health services is only a small portion. Another paradoxical point lies in transparency. Numerous official reports highlighted that the number of homeless camps had decreased following the enactment of the ordinance. But that does not mean that the poor have a place to live. It is more likely that they are simply washed further away, disappearing from sight in the city centre. The so-called success is essentially just a relocation, not a settlement. This story also raises questions about social justice. In some places, residents can still see new high-rise structures springing up, luxury hotels and bustling commercial areas. But right at the foot of those buildings are people pushed to the side of the road, treated like marginalized people. As the law leans towards protecting the city's clean image, instead of protecting the basic right to life of the weak, faith in justice is deeply shaken. Long-term solution needs to go against the logic of criminalizing poverty. Instead of fines, arrests, or forced evictions, cities need to invest more heavily in temporary housing, mental health care, and job opportunities for those who lose support. In many states, there have been successful trials with the Housing First model, which provides secure accommodation first and then comes with support. Studies show that the cost of this humanitarian housing is much lower than the cost of police, prisons, and emergency medical services. A notable example is the collaboration of large corporations such as Amazon, which, through their charitable foundation, have supported tens of millions of dollars to build affordable housing and support centers for the homeless. Although this is not the complete solution, it shows that when the private and state sectors join hands, it is possible to create a different path, is more humane and more effective than, instead of continuing to criminalize poverty. Can a society really be safe when the weakest are treated like criminals? And more importantly, when will we dare to look directly at that cleanliness on the surface of the city cannot be exchanged for human dignity? In the memory of many older Americans, a home was once a symbol of stability, where families reunited after a long day at work. However, in the present, that dream is becoming more and more distant. Streets once bustling with middle-class families have now become battlegrounds for signs for sale, binding rentals, and expenses beyond the means of the people. Rents in many major cities have skyrocketed in less than a decade. This increase not only reflects an imbalance in supply and demand, but is also a consequence of many complex factors. The real estate investment boom, foreign capital flows into the housing market, and the large financial funds mass acquisitions of residential areas and then sublet them at higher prices. Although growth rate figures vary from report to report, the common point is this: more and more people can no longer afford to pay for where they live. The story becomes even grim for the elderly, who rely solely on pensions or social security funds. With a fixed income, facing a double rent in a few short years is like a sentence hanging over your head. Some grandparents have to choose between medicine and rent. Others were forced into a reluctant situation, leaving the city, accepting to live in areas further from the center, where health services and public transportation were scarce. Meanwhile, many rental price control policies are only temporary. Some localities impose annual price increase limits, but legal loopholes cause this measure to quickly lose its effectiveness. Homeowners only need to renovate, upgrade, or change contracts to overcome those constraints. As a result, tenants fall into a spiral with no way out. Each year it becomes more expensive. Each day it becomes more fragile. Not only the elderly, even young families are caught up in this wave. The generation that was once promised that worked hard, there would be a roof, now has to admit that that dream is shattered. When income doesn't keep up with expenses, many people are stuck in a rent loop, paying off debt savings that aren't enough to buy a home. The burning question is, does the American dream still exist? Or is it just a memory of a bygone era? However, not all are gloomy. Some initiatives from large corporations show that there is still a glimmer of hope. Amazon and Google, for example, used to launch funds to support the development of affordable housing for communities around their work campuses. Such programs could not address the whole crisis, but were a demonstration that when the private sector combined with local authorities, it was still possible to effect positive change. So who will be responsible for turning fragmented solutions into long-term strategies? And if the dream of a home is gradually disappearing, will society still retain the cohesion that was once the foundation of America? In the dark streets of the centers of major American cities, it is often easy to encounter a recurring sight: emaciated, lost faces, carrying a few plastic bags or old carts, wandering aimlessly. Behind that image is a harsh truth. Homelessness is not only a lack of a home, but is also associated with spirals of mental illness and social evils. Some experts say that many people used to have stable jobs and normal families, but after a psychological event, they slipped without breaking and had no place to turn back. In fact, when a person falls homeless, their access to mental health services is almost zero. They have no insurance, no official residential address, and no place to pursue a long course of treatment. That makes inherent psychological problems worse, leading to uncontrolled behavior. There are also many reports that the lack of timely psychiatric treatment is the reason why they are more likely to seek temporary forms of self-soothing, thereby creating many other consequences. In communities with many makeshift camps, this vicious cycle is even more evident. On the one hand, unattended mental illness pushes many people into the streets. On the other hand, it is the unsettled and unsafe environment of the streets that makes mental conditions worse. Many residents living near the camps expressed concern, saying that unusual behavior, screaming, or uncontrollable incidents were happening more and more. For them, it is a testament to the inability of the social system to let a group of people fall into a situation where there is no way out. In that gloomy picture, there are still glimmers of hope from large organizations that are trying to squeeze into a gap that the government has not yet filled. Some brands such as Johnson & Johnson have funded research programs and community psychiatric care services, expanding resources for experimental projects to bring more sustainable therapy to helpless people. Although not a comprehensive solution, this may be the first step to breaking the vicious cycle that has existed for too long. If a society is measured by how it treats the weakest, we are faced with a big question. Is it time to radically change our approach to the problem of homelessness associated with mental illness? And more importantly, will we choose to invest in long-term healing or continue to patch up with ineffective short-term measures? Dallas was once considered one of the most dynamic cities in America, where the economy grew rapidly and job opportunities were abundant. But behind the light of skyscrapers, there is another reality that makes many elderly people and short-lived working families feel like they are being abandoned. The problem of homelessness in Dallas is not only a consequence of poverty, but also a reflection of the powerlessness of a long-fractured policy system. For many years, the city has continuously launched programs to reduce home loss. But those measures are like patching a boat that has had holes in it. The budget is allocated, initiatives are announced, but the effectiveness is unclear. Many experts believe that the root cause lies in the policy's lack of cohesion. Departments operate sporadically, and state and federal governments often blame each other. The consequence is that the solutions put forward are temporary and cannot touch the core of the problem. Dallas residents have begun to lose faith. Community meetings are increasingly intense, with many residents asking, "Where does the huge budget go? Why haven't we seen any changes in all these years?" Some lawmakers admitted there was a gap between the numbers on the report and the reality on the streets, but that admission has not yet been accompanied by a specific plan to resolve it. In the eyes of many people, Dallas is living in a paradox. On paper, it is promising, but in real life, it is not much different. The breakdown of policy not only left temporary tents on the sidewalks, but also gnawed away at social trust. When residents no longer believe the numbers announced by their leaders, when the weak feel they are just a hidden burden, that rift can last for generations. If Dallas, a city rich in potential, is still struggling in a vicious cycle, what will happen to poorer communities? Even so, there are still glimmers of hope. Several non-profits and large businesses are joining hands with the city to test the new support model. For example, the Home for Good program, backed by large corporations, has opened up an approach focused on providing stable housing first, then healthcare, employment, and counseling services. Such models not only help homeless people escape temporary living, but also provide confidence that a long-term solution is possible if governments and communities truly join forces. Will we choose to continue painting with beautiful numbers on the report, or bravely face it to fix the policies that have rotted from the roots? If a city like Dallas is still struggling, how much longer can faith in this system hold? In a city that boasts a growing image, Dallas is facing a worrying reality: the social and economic impact of the deepening homeless crisis. The crowded streets not only expose the hardships of those who have lost their homes, but also reflect a shaky social, economic system. Small businesses in many central areas had to close because customers were afraid to arrive, causing already weak cash flow to become even more depleted. Workers lose their jobs and business owners fall into uncertainty. This is not just a matter of charity or welfare, but also a direct economic problem that Dallas has not found a solution to. The consequences don't stop there. Local residents reflected that they felt increasingly insecure. The heavy presence of temporary camps makes many people concerned about the safety of their families and children. Some schools near homeless areas also face pressure as parents appear shy. Community trust, which is the glue of social cohesion, gradually cracks as many people feel the government is powerless to protect a stable living environment. And when anxiety takes the place of trust, it is easy for society to fall into division. Those who have little fear losing more, and those who have lost everything find themselves marginalized. In the broader picture, the homeless crisis also damages the image of the city on the national map. Dallas used to be an attractive destination for investment and tourism, but now images of tent camps growing widely cast a shadow over the economic outlook. When external confidence declines, new businesses are afraid to invest capital. Tourists also choose to go elsewhere, and the spiral of economic damage becomes even more difficult to control. Not to mention the intangible costs: mental stress, loss of social cohesion, and faith in the future that is gradually fading in the community. However, there are still glimmers of hope. Several large organizations have begun to collaborate to come up with sustainable solutions, such as building stable housing programs that come with medical support services and jobs. A prominent brand has invested in a low-cost housing initiative incorporating vocational training to give former homeless people the opportunity to reintegrate. These models, if expanded and replicated, could help Dallas step-by-step escape the cost spiral of instability, loss of trust. Will the city have the determination and vision to turn fragmented efforts into a comprehensive strategy? Or will Dallas continue to lose its future on the very land once expected to be the promised land? Behind the dry numbers and reports, what we see is an undeniable reality. As the problem of homelessness spreads, it not only deprives vulnerable people of their homes, but also erodes a city's trust, safety, and even social, economic vitality. Dallas is not the only case, but just a mirror to the challenges facing many American cities. The big question arises here: can a rich country like the US find a way to build a system that actually puts the people and not the numbers on the report at the heart of every policy? And if it doesn't change, what future will await generations to come? If you find these things need to be known by more people, leave your thoughts below, share this video with your friends, and don't forget to click like and subscribe to continue exploring with us the stories hidden behind America's glamorous surface. The content in this video is compiled from a variety of public sources and is intended to provide information, analysis, and a general perspective. Some details may be estimated or not fully verified, so this should not be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. All views expressed are for reference only and do not represent any organization or individual. Viewers are encouraged to learn more from mainstream sources before drawing conclusions.